Hello and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am Jamie, your host, and you are not confused. You are not here. It is not the third Saturday of the month. This is not Exploring Glorantha. This is Behind the Screen. I am here with the co-host of Exploring Glorantha, Evan, who is our Lancor scholar on Exploring Glorantha, and I'm more of the Isseries guy. I feel like, but we're here talking about Behind the Screen. Behind the Screen is the show that we do every Tuesday and Thursday, and we talk about gaming, game design, game reviews, and actually we're going to talk about. We went to Chaosium Con about 2 weeks ago. It was a small kind of boutique convention put on by Chaosium, publisher of great games that we both of us just adore: RuneQuest, Call of Cthulhu, Seventh Sea, a bunch of other ones. And so I thought it'd be fun to have Evan on. We could talk about our experiences at the convention. We've talked a little bit about, given some hints, but today we're going to just kind of talk about what it was like, what we loved, and why we're probably going back next year. So Evan, welcome to Behind the Screen.
Thank you.
And why don't you tell me kind of what was your experience at Chaosium Con?
Oh, well, it was great. As you said, a boutique convention, a couple hundred, maybe 300 participants between those who in attendance and those who were putting it on. It was not at all overwhelming. There wasn't any, there weren't any major sources of frustration. I think like the kinds of things like with great crowds trying to get across convention halls or anything like that. It was very accessible. It was open. It felt relaxed and really enjoyable. And people were super approachable, really friendly, and it was just a great atmosphere to go and think about the fun things that we love about Chaosium and the games that they do, and to play some games.
Well, and we got to try the new Seventh Sea card game that's coming out. It's releasing at Gen Con and then will be put out by Pinebox Games or Studios. I'll put a link in the show notes. Which was a ton of fun. Like, I got to sit down and do a demo. You kind of hung out with that. They really kind of captured sort of the fencing, swashbuckling feel of Seventh Sea in a card game. I'm probably going to pick it up at Gen Con. It actually ended up being just a lot of fun to play. But when we got there, it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was at a beautiful sort of resort. I think one of the highlights for me was, first of all, that initial seminar that we went to. Not the upcoming, but we'll talk about what was released in the upcoming seminar. But the myth and anti-myth and cult seminar. But we also got to meet a ton of fans. We got to meet Robert and James. We got to meet several other people. We got
Brian?
Brian, Ludo, just to everybody who saw us there and chatted and interacted. It was great to talk with all of you. So that initial seminar, they had Jason Durall and Jeff Richard, so two of the main RuneQuest guys, and then they had I'm gonna forget his name. Who's in charge of the Pendragon line? The guy in charge of the Pendragon line was there as well, and they talked about why mythology is so important to Chaosium. RuneQuest, Pendragon, these are all highly mythological games and stories. But what was interesting to me is they also referred to Cthulhu as the anti-myth. And I know I've talked a little bit about that on Behind the Screen, but it was just an interesting way that to see kind of behind the company and see, no, like, they've thought a lot about how these games all work and interact and how they relate to each other. Now, I spent more of my time in seminars. I went to a Sandy Peterson adventure design seminar, which was spectacular. I have a fun one-shot to run about the Cho-Cho and Agathpa. I'm gonna butcher that. My brain just died. The frozen creatures that have the horn that stores.
Oh, the Nopka.
The Nopka, that's what it was, and possibly even a Yeti. And what was fun is, man, Sandy Peterson is a master of his craft. To take an hour and put together an adventure that I would actually buy with audience participation, it's very clear that he has been writing Call of Cthulhu for 30 plus years. It was like it all rolled off his mind, it rolled off his tongue. He was drawing connections faster than anyone in the audience, and just, again, in an hour, put together what's, probably a very solid convention scenario or one shot. And that was just spectacular. Now, Evan, one of your highlights were the games that you played in. Do you want to talk about the ones that you played in solo, and then we can talk about our Gloranthan telenovela
Yes.
game that we played in?
Yes. And also, I would like to. We didn't forget you, David Larkins.
No, David, we did not.
We just had a brief momentary lapse of reason. David Larkins, the line editor for Pendragon, also was great to hear him in the Cults and Myth and.
Yeah. I defer to my
such discussion.
To my Lancor, my associate.
Sometimes you just have to be good at looking things up.
Yes.
So there were two games that I played in without Jan. They were both billed as RuneQuest games. You made a choice.
I made a choice. All choice involves loss, Evan. Don't worry.
That's right. So in one, I hold this up. So this was my character to start with. This was Nick Brooks. Nick Brook. No S on the end. Nick Brook.
Possessive S. Nick Brooks' game.
Nick Brooks' game.
Yes.
At the table, where we all started out as important, powerful individuals in the Lunar Empire. In the more or less the 1625 to 1630 range, I think, of the present era that's being supported in for Glorantha. And it was a lot of fun. There were a great group of people at the table, and Nick was so enthusiastic, and yet he was sort of apologetic because he felt that he had some health issues before he got to came to Chaosium Con, which had cut into his prep time for this con game. Which I think he's pointing at eventually polishing up and publishing on the Johnstown Compendium. He sort of oversees a good portion of the Johnstown Compendium. He is a cheerleader, and somebody, if you want to bring something interesting to publish there, he's super supportive. So he was like, "Oh, this isn't really finished, and I really want feedback. I hope that everybody enjoys themselves." It was a thoroughly enjoyable game with really interesting people at the table, and there was I don't want to say too much because it's a game that
there's a twist
that exists for the various surprises and twists that happened throughout the development of the game. But it was a lot of fun, and it was very enjoyably lunar to start out with, which of course the lunars are sort of the default bad guy for the default starting areas for RuneQuest, like the starter set, etc. Although the starter set does a very good job of muddying the waters there
just a bit
as well.
Yeah.
But Nick is one of the folks that's written a lot about the Lunar Empire and lunar belief and the contrasts and contradictions of that society. So it was great having someone who had a great command of all of those things, and has published he's one of the key authors of the Guide to Glamour and other the free form Life of Moonsun. So that was just, he brought all of that knowledge and enthusiasm to the game. It was just a lot of fun. And then on Saturday, I played in a game that was called Waglan Island,
Which was
and
sounded amazing.
yeah, it with absolutely not to take away from the other two games I played in, that I had a great time, that were terrifically run and really well prepped, and really well played by all the people at the table. Waglan Island was just really special. It just edged out the other excellent experiences that I had to be my favorite. David Millions, who was our game master, is also the author of the draft of the material that this was drawn from, and it's a material that is on the long-term development track for Chaosium to develop the east of the continent of Genertella, and particularly the area of Krallarella. And not only was there the culture presented there, but the draft mechanics for draconic mysticism and how that is incorporated in the Krallarella society and culture. And we played, straight RuneQuest with, the all the statistics and skills and everything, and yet the different system of spirituality infused that game with a completely different feel. Like, I was playing in Glorantha, I was playing RuneQuest, but I was experiencing it in a totally different way. And in part, that was the way that David was running it, but in part, it was these systems that he was developing, and that, no doubt will change and evolve before they actually get published. But I mean, I love the direction that they're going, because I felt like I was in this different society and experiencing the world in a really different way. And the threat, nobody drew a weapon during this game. The threat was really a spiritual, internal threat in many ways. There were external enemies, but the way they were harming people was by causing them to act on the negative qualities from within. And we had to determine how to defeat them by, essentially defeating ourselves, by overcoming our things. And that meant that the runes and the passions that drive characters had to be employed and examined. And it was just a great game. It was just really fun. And all the people at the table were so terrific. And half the table had never played RuneQuest before. They were like Call of Cthulhu players, or
interesting.
Or they'd come, and they just got in there and they went for it. They were terrific. I loved every moment of that game. I really enjoyed the way that David ran the game, and every player at the table, contributed. And we had one person who was a very experienced player, Hervé, who has been involved in the community, I think, for decades. And he came, and obviously he knew David. David gave him the ox to play.
Like an actual ox, like an
actual ox, not an awakened ox or anything, but he gave him some latitude. But one of the characters was the herdsman, the guy who owns a big ox, and basically takes him around to do the planting, to till fields and things, and to carry loads and stuff. And so the ox was involved. And the ox rolled the first fumble of the game, and also it was great. And it was great to have this person at the table who actually had been a playtester of some of the materials, and who was great at being, sort of assisting and throwing
Mm-hmm.
out ideas. And so it was just a great mix of at that table. So I loved it. And I should say one more thing. Sorry, I've been blah
No,
blahing a lot.
don't go for it.
But we also had a Keat. Now we've recently recorded
Our duck episode,
our
yes.
duck episode, and the Keats are relatives of the ducks.
Mm-hmm.
They are the eastern bird people, mainly from the islands, even beyond Cralorella, in Vithella. The thousands of islands are out there, and you can have sort of seagull people and pelican people and flamingo people and parrot people, etc. Anyway, we had a seagull Keat who that was from a small colony of seagull Keats that were on Waglan Island, and he was played a critical role, Zio the Keat, and David ran this game twice. So there are people who know of Zio the Keat and the other people who involved who were not in my game, and I don't know them, but they got to experience like a different kind of Waglan Island. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, they were some. We had one on the Discord, the iconic Discord, who was talking about it.
Yeah.
Now, before we talk about the Red Bride, which was the game we played in together,
yes,
I'd like to take a step away and just kind of talk about the additional material that we were able to kind of grab. I was able to, like, they had a little dealer room. I was able to snag, a bunch of the Greg Stafford library that I didn't have, some of the new RuneQuest, or some of the new Call of Cthulhu books that had come out. But this was it. This was the sort of the piece de resistance of the event. Like, to get the notes from Greg Stafford's house campaign for the first 3 years. We're actually going to talk with Rick and hopefully get some information here in May about, is there more of these Chaosium archival collections that are planned? Are they going to be collected? Kind of what the format is. But these notes are a time capsule into the early days of, like, not RuneQuest 2. I think most of it, at least the first half of the book, the first set of notes, are all pre-RuneQuest 2, because as Greg is responding to people, he's saying, oh, well, we should incorporate that into the next revision of RuneQuest when it comes out. And so it's interesting from a game design perspective. It's interesting to watch Greg kind of go, I know how Glorantha should work. I'm running this game. Even to John Wick has said that if you think you've had a great idea in gaming, Greg Stafford came up with it first and probably did it better. And for me, what's been interesting is, if you read through this, there is a moment where he's talking about his rules for how to set up a game, and how he runs his games, and also where like the proto Your Glorantha will vary, where he talks about every Gloranthan game is an interaction between the GM, the players, and the rules, and that can never be replicated. Those are all the topics we discuss on the Grand Campaign. And it's like, yeah, Greg came up with it in 1978, 79, 80, and we're still learning from him decades later.
Yeah.
So you and I got to play in one game together. It was Tales of the Reaching Moon, the Red Bride. Todd ran our game. Todd did an amazing job. Was it not Todd?
No. Chad.
Oh, it said Todd on the... That's what I was looking up. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I was looking up the...
Oh, Todd, he's the convention organizer.
Okay, Chad. My apologies. Did an amazing game. If you get a chance to play in his Red Bride game, it is wonderful. The setup was intense. The characters came to the table with a conflict, and I could pretty much guarantee every time you play in that game, it would be 100% different. Yeah. Essentially, there was a lunar bride being who was sort of adopted by the Red Emperor, being sent back to Tarsh to marry King Ferandros, and we were the party escorting her. So Nick Brook played our Red Bride, and there were 8 people at the table. It was a huge game, but
Yeah.
everybody not only had ties, like deep emotional ties or conflicts with the other characters at the party, everyone had a hidden romance, which is why I called it our Gloranthan telenovela. I think that's how Nick described it to me. So Nick, the Red Bride, was in love with her bodyguard, and my character was in love with King Frandros. We had a Praxian
Antelope Rider.
Antelope Rider. We had a former soldier who is now a initiate of Tilo Nori. We had a penitent. We had a crazy shaman who could be played as dark as you wanted it to be. And it turns out that some of the stories that came out were about this character's traumatic past were very traumatic. And then Evan was trying to wrangle all of us. As Evan, why don't you talk about your character?
Well, so I was playing the Reverend Mother. I was I was a Ripiantor magician essentially, but that had been I had been involved in the Lunar College of Magic, and so helped wield enormous powers that had helped conquer places. But also had been involved in travel for gathering information. I had been involved in fighting crime. I was a thief taker.
You were.
And so and I had tried to use my powers of persuasion to persuade this captured Orlanthe to change his ways and to come over to the lunar way. I failed. There was someone else who failed, and then ultimately
he was broken.
The Dan 5 Sarin cult broke him and rebuilt him, but they various parts of it had to be cut off in order to induce the visions to seek his redemption within the lunar way. And of course, he was my secret crush. And just religiously, we could not be together.
I think everyone could not be together with their forbidden love. It was wonderful.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and but some people learned to weasel around that, and others just had to sublimate their pain into action.
It was a wonderful game. I got to pull in some of the lunar lore that I knew to tell tales of the Red Emperor during his lusty days and try and convince the Red Bride that no, you shouldn't marry for marriage. You should marry for love. Even the Red Emperor regrets this. Basically paving a way for me to be with the king. And we found a workaround, and it ended in a dance-off. Like, part of that could have been the fact that it was nearly midnight when we finished the game. Part of it was definitely the players at the table. Nick brings a frenetic energy with him wherever he goes. But I mean, the nicest guy, deeply invested in Gloranthan lore. It was fun because I think 7 of the 8 of us were experienced Gloranthan players. And every time the GM was about to explain something, Nick would be like, oh, well, don't forget, as Lunars, we have a really bad track record with dealing with river spirits. And he's like, that's exactly what I was going to say. And the rest of us are like, oh yes, like this river and this river. And so he's like, it was great for the GM because he was like, most of the explanation I would have had to do to put the scenes in context, everyone knew. And so it was if I only got to play in one con game, I'm glad it was that one. It was a unique experience.
And I have to say, Chad, too, I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm and energy at the table, and he very, 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 very delicately wrangled on it. There were a couple of times where I felt like, we were kind of stepping on his his plans, but he rolled with it.
He
He
did.
did. He was great,
Like a champ. Yeah.
and I enjoyed his game. It was carefully thought out. Of course, Nick is like, we need to publish this.
If you're listening, yes. Well,
so anyway, we'll
oh,
see. We'll see what Chad does with it.
if he does publish it, we'll let you know on Exploring Glorantha and possibly
Absolutely.
do a review of it. Well, that brings us to the end of this Behind the Screen. My coffee is done. We've sort of talked about our experiences. Evan, all things considered, like nothing changes. Back in Ann Arbor next year.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely. Although this is my third edition hardback Call
Oh,
of
yes.
Cthulhu. Sandy Peterson
Yes.
very, very graciously signed it for me while I was totally nerding out near him, and he was very cool and very kind and thoughtful about it.
I recorded the
appreciated it
whole
a
interaction,
lot.
but then Evan broke my phone so that it was. I'm
Lies!
sorry, that footage lost.
Lies!
The other thing that was really interesting, just before we wrap up here, was the Chaosium Auction, and I plan to go every year, even if I don't have as much funds available. There was one collector. He was obviously a collector. He had the list of everything that he had versus what he needed. You would hear him make comments like, "Oh wait, no, I do need this because I don't have it. I only have it in the Spanish edition." Like, very clearly a collector. Number 6, if you're listening, congratulations on the haul. There were moments where I was angry with you, and I apologize for that. But it was wonderful. Evan and Robert and I went to it. I have yet to open it. I will open it. For all of you collectors watching, just know that I'm going to open and read my 4th edition Stormbringer that's still in the shrink wrap here. But what was really cool was listening to Mike Mason and Rick share the history of Chaosium through the products. There were some unique things that you would never get to hear about or see about. They had the photo plates for some of the old art pieces back when they would actually send, the film of, hey, here's what this color plate is going to look like, or here's what the cover is going to look like. And it was it wasn't 2 hours, it was 1 hour, right? It might have been 2.
It was 2 hours.
Yeah, it was a 2-hour walk down Chaosium memory lane, and they say every year the stuff is going to be completely different. And so if you ever have a chance to go to a Chaosium auction, just to learn about it is well worth the free price of admittance. If you do plan to purchase things, bring more money than I did. So,
bring a lot of money, especially if number 6 is there.
Number 6.
No, it was astounding. And I heard Rick say that they've got about 5 or 6 more years worth of that much stuff to clear out,
like 200
sort of their
items.
backlog.
Yeah.
So,
well, any final thoughts before we sign off here, Evan?
I mean, Chaosium Con was a great experience. The people at Chaosium were so gracious, so thoughtful. I'm sure that there were imperfections and things that didn't go exactly right. But it was as close to a perfect convention as I think I could ask for. I really enjoyed it. And of course, I got to go with the co-host of Exploring Glorantha,
I got to go with the co-host
which was just phenomenal. And meet people who, out in the wild, who have watched our show and listened to blah blah about this and that, and who still wanted to meet us like take pictures with us. And it was very humbling and gratifying. And I look forward to experiencing that again, hopefully next year. So
me too.
Way to go, Chaosium.
Well done.
Excellent job.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, that's it for this Behind the Screen. I'll see you on Tuesday when we get back into game design and looking at more about Ekiazaru. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. If you like what we do, if you like the show, leave a comment. Like, subscribe on YouTube. It helps the algorithm say, hey, this is content that other people may enjoy. If you want to support us, please consider using any of the affiliate links in the video. Jumping over on Patreon at patreon.com/iconic production. You get access to our Discord channel. You get to vote on new shows, new PDFs, that sort of thing, or follow us here on Twitch. Until next time, have a good one.